Do Shime. Do Shime is essentially closed guard on someone and then some kind of control of the head. The way we get into it is usually from standing. That's the way we practice it. I'm facing someone. Sometimes we do it from kumikata. I prefer to not have a neutral position, but I try to get center. I get control of both lapels, a little bit like maybe Han Tomoe. A lot of people will just grab, pull them in tight, and have a seat. Try to pull them down on top. Some folks will actually jump all the way up and wrap their legs around the body and hope that their body weight is enough to pull them down. That's a common technique in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, particularly at the lower levels. I think that that's very dangerous and puts me in a very vulnerable position, vulnerable to dakiage, the judo throw, where you pick someone up from guard and then slam them, especially if you jump up and you're not able to take me down. You're already in position for me to just lift up a little bit and then slam you. So my preferred version is I actually step on the feet all the way up till I hit the ankles. If I'm doing this from standing, typically, I'm not sure I've ever pulled this off from a standing position other than kata. I get to Do Shime or closed guard from the ground, and that's a longer discussion and many different ways to get there from the ground game. But from standing, the person's facing me, and I just step on the feet, but not just at the end. I go all the way up to the ankles on both feet, grab the lapel on both sides, pull them down onto my body, and here. This is nice. It prevents them from sprawling. It makes it hard for them to pick me up. It's hard for them to move their feet and get a wider base. They can't really move, and I just make them top heavy and pull them down. It also makes it pretty easy for me to get my legs around their body and put them in my guard. Technically, a guard is any time my legs are between me and you. Right now, even if I'm on the ground and someone's standing over me and we're not even touching, but my legs are here and they have to pass my legs to get to my head or my vital organs, they're technically in my guard. Usually we think of it as both people on the ground and have my legs wrapped around them. My legs are wrapped around, it's an open guard. They're closed, I can either have a half guard or a full guard, which is what we're working on here, is my legs are wrapped all the way around the torso and locked. One variation on this for people with really long legs or just bigger than the person that they're working with is a body triangle. You can actually go all the way across the body, put your ankle underneath the knee, a little bit like sankaku, and lock it in. You can go in under the body for reinforcement. That's a nice solid body lock. It's not Do Shime though, and it's not going to put any pain necessarily on the body. It's just a really solid lock. But what I'm working on here is wrapping my legs around the body. I pull someone down, they're facing me, and my legs are wrapped around them here. Now, a lot of people will do a lazy guard. They get the legs wrapped around, they hook the ankles, and they're just kind of hanging out here because they're tired or whatever, trying to buy themselves a second, maybe doing some work, trying to get an arm or some kind of a choke, waiting for them to make a mistake before I open my guard and do something else. This is a very active guard, Do Shime. Not only am I wrapped around and my legs are tight, but I'm extending my legs as far as I can, and not just out, but up. Placement is incredibly important too. A lot of people will get too high on the body. They'll be up around the chest, where the ribs have support on the spine, or sometimes they're too low. They're on the pelvis, which doesn't give, or even just above the pelvis on the soft tissue, which isn't comfortable, but it usually isn't enough to make someone tap. I need to be right on the floating ribs. I like to start actually just a tiny bit below the floating ribs, and then as I extend and lift my legs, I come up into the floating ribs, and that's where I'm putting the pressure. So placement is important and technique is important. Get just below the floating ribs, lock those legs in, extending into the floating ribs and lifting. I also want control of the head, pulling the head towards me this way. Generally, I want the head facing one way or the other. I don't generally care which way it's facing. I just want it flat on my chest. It's going to give me better control and limit their options on which side to escape from. From here, lock it in, extend, grab the head, lock it down. If you want to add some extra pressure, you can slide your hands to the top of the head and try to push down to get a kind of a spinal compression as you're working the ribs. Now, the hard part about getting them down is even though this is painful, they're probably going to be postured up as much as they can. And I'm people want to jump up and grab and try to pull them down, which is a lot of work. What I want to do with my legs is use my legs to pull them in. And I'm not going to pull them in this way for a couple reasons. One, it's going to take the pressure off. I need to keep extending my legs. And two, I'm really not going to be strong enough to just pull somebody over who's trying to posture up, especially if they have a frame with their arms. So what I want to do is that exercise we do at the beginning of class oftentimes, extend my legs and make a circular motion. This way, I'm circling in to pull the body in and over. So I'm extending my legs through those ribs, lifting up, pulling them over, and then down to get the head, and then I will extend again to lock it in. Do Shime.